Right now, the whole world is watching three countries very closely: America, Israel, and Iran. Well, why? Why is the whole world watching these countries? To answer that, we have to see what's the conflict between these countries. The conflict in the Middle East is affecting oil prices all over the world. But before we get into all of that, this is AthavanExplore. If you want world news quick and fast, subscribe to my channel and let's get into the video. So how does the war in the Middle East necessarily affect us? Well, let me explain. Most of the world's oil supply comes from the Middle East, like countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Iran, Oman, countries like such. Right? And the ocean, it might be, in like some places it might be big, and some places it might be small. And just like that, this Gulf is like mostly somewhat big, alright? But this is very small, narrow pathway, narrow waterway called the Strait of Hormuz. And remember this, because this is going to be really important later in the video. For example, in the border of America and Canada, where some places are like more bigger, more wide, and some places are very narrow, like the water, the rivers, like the St. Lawrence River, some places it's very, very narrow, and some places it might be very, very wide. Just like this, the Strait of Hormuz is around 32 kilometers wide. Alright, you might be thinking that's pretty wide, but for a place that transports about 20% of the world's oil, that isn't really big. But that's their only chance, that's their only hope. Alright, because this is the only pathway, this is the only waterway where the oil can be transported from the one side of the Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. Alright, so that's where it goes to countries like India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, even Canada, America, other countries. It usually exits through this pathway, this waterway, and brings it out in ships. Alright, that's how this oil is usually transported. Well, the Strait of Hormuz is right in between Iran and Oman, alright? And it's very narrow. It's like kind of like a hill. That's basically, like, this is the Gulf, goes like that, and this is the Gulf of Oman. Right? So Iran is able to control this place, the Strait of Hormuz. And since Iran's getting attacked by Israel and America from all sides, like they're getting bombed constantly, and there are like a lot of people dying, a lot of places dying, and even the new supreme leader got injured from one of the strikes that America and Israel caused. So with all of this going on, Iran can't literally attack America and Israel directly. Like, Iran can literally fly over all the way to America and hit them, because America is first far away. They have a whole bunch of intelligence, spies, stuff like that, and they're a superpower. And so is Israel. Israel is also a very big superpower. So two superpower countries attacking, like picking on a small kid, that's basically what's happening. So Iran has to indirectly attack them somehow, like attacking American bases that are in Dubai, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or attacking American allies. And just like that, they closed the Strait of Hormuz. Alright, so this doesn't only affect America, this affects the whole world, because this can increase oil prices, because, as I said before, 20% of the world's oil travels through this narrow pathway. So this is a big problem for us, but Iran has no choice either. They need to protect their homeland. Alright, so in one side of the world that we're thinking about, oh no, the oil prices are gonna go high and what's gonna happen to Iran, Israel, and America. But the other side of the world is basically wasting this oil. Let me explain. Iran and Israel. So basically, around 2 days ago, there was a miracle, or someone called a miracle in Iran. Alright, so in the capital of Iran, which is Tehran, there was something called black rain, which looked like a miracle at the time, but it was the complete opposite. It was a literal nightmare. To understand that, we have to go a day before the 2 days ago. Yeah, so basically what happened was America and Israel said they're going to do a fierce attack on the capital of Iran, and that's exactly what they did. But during this attack, well, I don't know if it was by accident or by purpose, but Israel managed to throw a bomb into one of Iran's oil factory. And if you know, oil burns really fast, and it's a huge ignition tool, alright? This is raw oil. Alright, there's like all different types of oil here, and there's like raw oil. This is an oil factory, so there's tons of oil everywhere. So, well, all we're asking for, like, oil prices are going up, we're complaining like that, and like these oils are getting wasted. One thing we have to take into consideration is Mother Nature. Alright, like one factor that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about since this war started is Mother Nature. Because a lot of materials, we're just damaging Mother Nature again and again and again by throwing missiles, by destroying oil factories. All these things are just affecting Mother Nature, and it's just affecting our earth, our land, and the place we live in, the place that takes care of us. Alright, so basically, since this happened, in some stories in the Bible, how the fire goes all the way up into the sky, just like that, that's exactly what happened here. The fire went up to 50 meters tall. Yes, 50 meters tall. That's crazy. That's insane, alright? So this fire burned for all night, and there was a thick smoke. It was like a thick, cloudy kind of texture, and it's all burned oil, and it goes up to the clouds. Alright, so let me introduce you to some middle school science right over here. So when this smoke kind of cloud thing mixes with normal clouds, it creates toxic clouds. And when they kind of mix, and when it rains like acid rain, like toxic rain. And in this case, it was oily black rain, because all the stuff that was mixed with the cloud was oil pollution. Alright, so because of this, the oil turned into black rain and fell into the ground of Tehran. But how does this damage Tehran, you might ask? Well, this type of acid rain affects the ground, the ground below. Alright, so building any new structures or even old structures that were here can be affected. And Tehran is a developed city in Iran. Think about Toronto in Canada, but that's basically Tehran in Iran. So in a place like this with damaged land, that's not really a good no. Alright, so this is very sad, and as I said before, one side is trying to conserve their oil, one side is wasting their oil, and we also need to take in consideration Mother Nature. Well, since this fierce attack happened in Iran kinda got their payback, but we have no solid proof for this other than the words of Iran and Israel. Basically, what Iran said they did, they said they attacked Israel's oil factory too. But this is no ordinary oil factory. This oil factory produces 60% of the oil in Israel. Yes, 60%. And that's pretty crazy. So Iran making a statement like this is wild. But Israel making a comeback for that by saying only a small part of her factory got burned down, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. So who's lying? Who's telling the truth? No one knows. But one thing is for sure, even here, Mother Nature is the one that's getting affected. If an attack damages oil facilities, or even oil transportation routes are blocked, oil prices will go up, oil supplies will go down, and the global market will go insane. Whether we like it or not, this world basically relies on oil. Alright, oil, it can be oil, petrol, diesel, gas, all these stuff comes from oil. And even here in Canada, when you go to the gas station, you can see the prices slowly but surely getting expensive. Alright, it's making a big difference. Alright, the gas station prices are going insane. And not only that, many countries, even in Canada for sure, a lot of places still use these LPG tanks to cook their food. Some places they have a direct LPG line, a gas line, but in a lot of places countries in Africa, India, all these countries use LPG tanks to cook their food. So they can't even cook their food properly without these tanks anymore, because these tanks comes from the Middle East, alright? And there's more things that factor with this. I heard in countries like India that they stopped giving these LPG tanks to hotels and restaurants because they needed to give it to the people, because there's a very limited supply of this LPG gas. So there's a huge bunch of problems going on just because of this one singular war that's happening in the Middle East. The whole country's getting affected. So one thing we need to remember, we need to protect this earth. We need to have peace, and we need to be kind, alright? So let's not have wars no more. Let's try to be kinder. Let's make this into a peaceful world. And that's it for today's video. See y'all next time. This is AthavanExplore.